To order the City of Oconomowoc Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, January 16th, 2024. Has appropriate meeting notification been made?
Yes, Your Honor, it has.
If you'd please call roll.
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Here.
Alderman Ellis. Here. Alderman Spiegelberg. Here. Alderman Mulder. Here. Alderman Shellpepper.
Here.
Alderman Maroney.
Here.
Alderman Douglas.
Here.
Alderman Rozak.
Here.
Well, welcome to the new year, everyone. We're going to start off with two items on committee business. To start up first is number 2A. Consider recommend revisions to the employee handbook use of information technology policy. Mr. Posnick.
Happy New Year, Council. We are asking for a few revisions to our technology use policy in the employee handbook. The revisions are, one, we're requiring a standard email signature block for compliant and consistent messaging. So employees will be required to stick to the essentials only: name, job title, department, contact information. So it keeps it professional and provides everything needed for an employee to communicate on the city's behalf. To promote the city, a city logo can be included, the department logo, and any department approved or city approved information, and this will include the city's website and social media. Number 2, we're requiring all city email users to include the confidentiality notice in every email, and that's just a carryover from an old policy that we should have put in the new policy when we did it. So employees are using it now, it's just we'd like to have that in the employee handbook. 3, we're requiring for anybody that posts information publicly, we're requiring all communications to reflect positively on the city, be in support of the city's mission, number 2, and 3, be reviewed by the department head responsible for the communications prior to posting publicly. And 4, we just want to update the IT resource section to include requiring users to be in control and possession of their IT resources, to promptly report any damage, malfunction, loss to the IT office, and to return the IT resources to the IT office upon termination. There's a few other minor wording changes I have there highlighted in yellow. So with that, we're asking for a motion to recommend the updates to the employee handbook use of information technology policy.
So it's discussion tonight. It'll come back to the next meeting for action.
So I'd like to open up for questions, comments for Mr. Posnick. Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Couple questions. So the very first line where it says, has many benefits of the city and its users, so the users of city technology. So just to be clear, you know, the library is part of the city but kind of separate. So would this apply to library employees?
The library, since I've been here and even past that, they always sign the employee handbook.
Okay.
They do have their own board and can set their own policies, but they've always followed the city's, so Oconomowoc's
So if
employee
we
handbook.
change this, does the library board then have to kind of adopt it, like kind of similar to kind of how we did CCW, how they?
On that one, they've, like I said, they've always, do they have to adopt this policy officially? I don't believe they, I'm not sure if they would. They have always signed the employee handbook. I'd have to look into that.
Okay. And then,
Why don't we just assume that they will?
oh.
And it would be to their benefit that they should.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I agree. And then the other one was on the second page where it says, you know, talking about anything that, you know, goes out on, you know, like city website or, you know, social media, reviewed by department head before it's posted. What if it is a department head that is creating a post, or just, for example, city administrator? Who approves that?
Well, I'm not sure Mark does some of that stuff, but obviously you're at the top of the food chain, and obviously there's things in the policy, obviously, that they obviously have to follow. Obviously, it has to be reflective, it has to be positive, and it has to reflect the city's mission.
Yeah, I guess one thing that I would like to see, especially with social media, is that before anything is posted, at least 2 sets of eyes are on it, just to, you know, maybe kind of catch a blind spot, or, you know, something that could break the internet.
Didn't break it.
I'm being very,
I know.
very cautious right here.
I'm biting my tongue.
No specific incidences, or incidents, but I would like to see something that, you know, at least it doesn't matter if you're a department head or not, that there has to be 2 sets of eyes on something before it's allowed to be posted.
Okay.
to catch those errors.
I'm just thinking, there's a lot of things that departments do that is business as usual. Things that I don't know if they would always have to have two sets of eyes if somebody's
Yeah.
responsible for it. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but I know they have those things. Would you put obviously, if we're gonna do something like that, anything new or creative would have to be reviewed by a second layer. That would be my suggestion to that.
Yeah,
You're talking about social media.
mainly social media. Yeah, I mean, the city
The only thing
website
that's a
too.
little hard with social media is weekends. And so to be practical with it, there still has to be levels of accountability. So let's say there's something special on a Saturday morning, everybody's gone. You may not have access to two sets of eyes on it, but something that should be posted. So I think there's gonna be, especially with social media, there always are gonna be exceptions. And so I think we should put things in place to reduce the chance of a problem, but I think it's impossible, frankly, to have it 100% perfect. There's just no way.
Could that,
I don't know if I agree with that.
I don't know if it needs to be codified in this. Can it be a department policy, or can it be so that they have flexibility that,
But do you feel that there's a lack of common sense in certain things? I mean, if you're gonna turn the city webpage to Barbie versus tennis classes canceled because of lightning, I think
Right.
your approach was something, substantial, creative, something
New,
new.
Something new.
Should have, anything that's customary, traditionally posted, we don't care about tennis classes canceled because of lightning. We care about weird
Yeah.
stuff being
New
put on
or
social
revised
media.
information.
So new or revised information, I don't think look, everybody in my office, before a brief goes out or before a significant letter goes out, gets another set of eyes on it because it reflects what my firm and what we do. If it's just a letter to the court say we're filing this brief, nobody looks at that twice.
Yeah.
So
And I think that's what Tony's trying to say with that. What we want to do is make sure we're clear on it so we don't have a problem in the future. If we do it for absolutely every post, that's going to be difficult.
No, and I'm just referring to in here where it says new or revised information.
Okay.
so you'd like the newer revised to be looked at by two
Yes,
sets of
yes,
eyes?
exactly. Sorry if I wasn't clear on that.
One department head and the other doesn't necessarily have to be a department head,
No, I don't
but
think
it should
so.
be at least one department head.
I mean, so if you want to post something and the closest person to you is Lori,
We're in trouble.
well,
but I mean,
or Ivan, or,
that doesn't solve anything.
or,
if
you know,
I
the
can-
council
I wanna do
president
this and
happens
I
to be
find
in that
somebody
day,
that
Yeah.
that's a
wants
second
to
set
do
of
it
eyes.
too. I mean, it's not.
Right, well-
I think about the weekend stuff and the after-hours stuff. You have a parade or something and you want
But a lot of times
social
those are
media person is
scheduled-
posting a parade of things going on, that then
Sometimes
you
those
have
are
to have
scheduled.
somebody who's not working going to get a second set of eyes for it. I think the idea of new and things that are way different, that makes sense. But I think we have to be practical with it. And then as things arise, then we have to continue modify and improve the policy. I'm just looking at the things I see.
The only thing I hesitate is the word with new, because there could be something on the weekend that's new that there's no one else there for
Correct.
that second set of eyes.
See, I mean, I would think in a city our size with the amount of staff that we have, how hard would it be to get a second set? Like, so if Mark Fry wants to post something real quick, for him to just screenshot it and send it to someone he knows that's gonna be responsive and just say, hey, does this look good? Go, and, and then done. I mean, it's,
The policy has no teeth if you don't have any kind of backup. So if you're gonna say, don't post anything that's destructive to the city or puts us in a bad light, but then have no ability to have any checks and balances, why do the policy at all?
But that isn't a check or balance.
Well, to some degree, it's having someone check on, it's enough that someone else looks at it and says, I don't know if I'd post that today.
Well, so for instance, if we're doing The Wizard of Oz, and we get eye in the sky, and we take a picture of it, now we want to go ahead and post that and say, hey, look at what Oconomowoc is doing. Now we have to have two sets of eyes to do that? By the time that happens, the event is over, and I think it's a little too late.
A new could be a photo taken from the parade that they want out that day. Does that
The
have to
other
be
thing you
reviewed?
could do is say, ideally, we want two sets of eyes. And then if there's something posted that we don't like, let somebody know right away. And then we have the accountability of that chain of command of who's responsible for it.
I think in most organizations, this would be a leadership expectation of the supervisor, that they are in control of their staff knows expectations and the rules of the department. And if you are not, if you're violating those rules, you get written up or terminated. And us trying to craft something so Barbie doesn't happen again, if someone, you know, you can't do it. Saying 2 sets of eyes, you can still do it with 1 set of eyes. If you want to do it, and it's no different than violating 2 sets of eyes is no different than violating reflect positively. If you don't care, you don't care. You're not going to care about 2 sets of eyes if you don't care about reflecting positively. So I would encourage us to have good leadership and management practices that cover this, which I think we do. I'm not suggesting we don't.
And I agree with that. So once we revise this, and we're not voting on it tonight, but each department head will then have an opportunity to reiterate all of this with their.
Correct.
Okay, and then, like he said, from a leadership standpoint, that's where this should come into play. I understand the idea of the double set of eyes, but I just feel like that could become very cumbersome and very difficult to do in a lot of cases.
But then who would, then what we're saying though, and I'm not necessarily, I'm kind of, I can swing both ways on this.
Yeah.
I like Matt's comment about the leadership and the difficulties of that, but then what we're saying is, anybody can post then whatever they want, and
On
we'll
the
worry about it
weekend,
later on. You know, we'll worry about it later on if it's bad, which we've already had 2 things that have happened in the last year that were, you know, we know what we're talking about. We know the 2 incidents we're talking
I
about.
don't know that I do. I'm assuming the Barbie, what is the other one where it's?
The mouse thing. I mean,
Mouse.
Oh, the mouse.
It made national news.
It made
because
international news.
Yeah, I mean, literally in international papers. So the point is, that's what we're trying to prevent.
I
is
should
what-
apply for the
and
media
I think it's a
protection.
brainstorming
So-
session. What do we do to do that? If we're not gonna put another set of eyes on anything, people can post whatever they want, we're gonna trust their leadership, then we will just have another incident like we did, last year, and it'll just happen again. So then why change the policy?
So I can tell you, in a lot of organizations, people would have loved the Barbie thing, and the second set of eyes would have said, that is awesome, get it up there, this is the hottest thing going right
Possibly.
now. Now, I realize there are people in the community that didn't like it, but in a lot of places, they would have celebrated the person that thought of it, because it probably would have driven tremendous amount of traffic.
So for me though, and again, my profession is not synonymous exactly to this, but if I think I'm going to make something a mistake or I'm questioning an argument, I don't give it to the person I know is going to 100% agree with me. That's where the leadership comes in is, hey, I'm gonna give this someone to look at that maybe doesn't like that kind of stuff, you know, to see if I'm going too overboard. But I mean, then don't have the policy at all, then why change it, so.
Well, one of
And
the,
I think,
My question is, with social media, isn't the whole purpose of social media to create traffic? To bring one into the public eye? So whether it's good media, bad media, whatever it is, you're bringing traffic in. Am I
But we don't want to bring, I mean, so are you saying that it's okay to bring traffic in regardless if it's good or bad? Like, I mean, as long as we're getting the traffic, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad?
What's the
That's-
ultimate goal? What are we looking to accomplish here?
Well, we don't want egg on our face. I mean, we don't want anybody posting anything that's outside of what we represent as a city.
So with this mouse thing that was supposed to be so bad, I didn't see it that way. As a matter of fact, I thought it was quite funny, and so did a lot of other individuals. And it's actually brought Oconomowoc into another level of light on social media. So I don't see a downside. I'm sorry, you gotta help me with that.
one of the other things I had emailed Tony earlier, not today, last week, about looking for some continuing education programs on social media in municipal world, because I don't even know if they exist. But it's something that the people that are going to be posting and the supervisor, core supervisor for it, maybe there's some ways in which we can get more information to give them more of the tools. How many of us are professionally or trained in social media? Mark, have you ever done it?
Obviously, I've only,
Isn't that why we
obviously,
have to take?
But
obviously
I
I
mean,
can
that's
teach
why,
a
yeah,
class.
but, I mean, that's why we're hiring, I mean, that's why.
Well, correct, but you gotta, that goes back to,
If they need continuing education classes on how to use social media, then they're not the right fit for that
but their
position.
supervisor might.
Well, no,
And there
Mr.
are
Duffy
just
probably
key
does.
people that do the postings for every department, so that would go with the training
Correct.
of each person. So,
Yep.
and you do have the 3 layers. And keep in mind, I think when you have those individuals, I think the training will be, obviously, to give some case scenarios. What is reflect positively on the city? What are the city's mission? Does this align with the city's mission? The Barbie event, did that align with the city's mission? What was it? You know what I mean? So I think there's some learning things that we could do, even from our perspective, in terms of training these people. I mean, obviously, some lessons were learned this year from some of the events that have happened.
So, the whole purpose, once again, I'm sorry, I'm kind of, the whole purpose of the social media and what the city's looking to accomplish is what?
To educate the public on our services.
You want to get some eyes out there so that people know that we're here, so that they can come to Oconomowoc and they can spend their money. All right, let's call it spade a spade, okay? I still don't see where we need to really complicate this. Help me.
Well, Kevin, we're not complicating it. We're just trying to create a policy to try to help.
I don't see where we need to.
Well, the goal is to help control a little bit of the negative and expand the positive, as it were. So we're trying to create a policy that allows us to use the social media without putting the city in a bad light. I think the best compromise is to say, not new necessarily, but significant citywide communication should have a second set of eyes. So if it's just the photo from above the parade, like Kevin suggested, we don't need to approve that. But if it's going to be significant, it's going to be citywide, about a major event or, major happening. For instance, I mean, I hope if we have another major police incident that whatever press release goes out is, 2 people are looking at that before one just goes out. So significant citywide communication could be the standard. Not new, not necessarily creative, because a little video of the parade, we want that to get out. We don't necessarily need to double check that. So I think that's where the line can kind of be drawn, and then, people hopefully will say, well, holy cow, I'm putting out a massive press release about the next year's Oz event. I'm not gonna just do that on my own. I'm gonna run that by someone. I'm not just gonna slap it onto Facebook with 15 typos in it that makes us look like idiots. So I think that's the compromise. I think that makes the most sense.
That makes sense.
I agree with that too, Matt. I mean, we're drawing the line somewhere as to what, is permissible, and what we're trying to accomplish as a city. So you have to draw the line somewhere. I think that's what we're trying to accomplish here, so.
So what I'm hearing, I think you've gathered, Tony, is maybe some language change. Other comments? or-
Addition, right? Addition of that sentence.
Addition, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's more clear. Any other questions or comments on this? Yeah.
As far as resources, we were like, what are we doing as far as social media? I'd like to suggest that maybe the Wisconsin League of Municipalities has resources that would be free or complimentary to us, as far as what other municipalities are doing or what some of their suggestions are from a legal standpoint, content standpoint, process standpoint.
We'll look into that
Yeah.
for sure.
Other comments, questions on this item?
So if you come up with anything between now and next meeting, just let me know, and we can have it in the draft that'll be coming back to council for action.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
All right, thank you, Tony. On our next item, discussion and direction for restroom location in the Village Green area. Mr. Betcher,
No,
or are you doing it?
yeah.
Okay, Mr. Fry,
No, so,
You don't want to get into the bathroom.
can you pop it up on the
Discussion.
screen?
No, I didn't bring it with me. I thought of it right when I was walking up. I apologize.
Aye.
Oh, I
The
know.
picture in the
Good thing.
packet.
Yes. Yeah, we do.
It was,
Applications.
You have it in your
Yeah.
binder.
So I provided an aerial view of the Village Green and City Hall area and showed 4 potential locations for restrooms. Many of these locations were discussed previously back when Craig Hepner was here and we were designing standalone restrooms for the Village Green area.
Can I hold you for a second? Jason, can you pop on just to the Committee of the Whole agenda and pop up that image of that map? I think it's going to help a lot in the discussion for everybody. So if you just go to Committee of the Whole agenda, it's page 6. Sorry about that. You can keep going, Mark.
I don't know if he has it.
Well, it's on the city website if
It's on
you
the
go to
city website if you don't have it.
Yeah.
Okay, so, so when we did have a project, so that whole standalone restroom that was gonna end up next to et cetera, or that's where it was being planned for, that plan stopped when we had a potential development downtown that was gonna have restrooms inside, and that is no longer available to us, so we're now bringing this back to start this process over again. And, you know, a couple things. One, we know that we have funds that we can redo the Village Green in 2024, so this year. And part of that design and layout will need to know where those restrooms are going to end up. So going from left to right on the numbering, first one's up in the northwest corner of the Village Green, up by the walkway. Some of the positives of this is the fact that it's near the walking route, it's visible and near where a lot of the usage would be within the Village Green. It's the shortest laterals for sanitary sewer and water. Now, they are going to be somewhat costly because there's a lot of concrete that we have to dig down through in order to get down to the pipes to do that. It's a location that would potentially be able to house the irrigation for Village Green and possibly some of the power distribution for the events down there. The restroom size that I looked at was the one that was being considered for the standalone restroom, which was 3 fixtures on each side and a sink on each side also. So that building's like about 25 feet by 32 feet. These squares aren't to scale. They're just on there for the numbers.
Is there plumbing there already?
No, there's not gonna be plumbing available to most of these locations. We're gonna have to go get it. So location number 2 was the one that we were working on. That one would have slightly longer laterals because we'd have to go out in Wisconsin Avenue to get to them. There was concern about how this was impacting flow through the Village Green area. Site number 3, a lot of discussion regarding the garage area of City Hall. And one of the things that we'd have to keep in mind is that for the size restroom we're talking, that would take up 3 of the stalls. And we would have some electrical and things to move within that, in the garage area, but that's gonna greatly reduce because generally we have 1 or 2 of our maintenance vans in there and then other storage, so.
Can we move those maintenance vans?
We're running out of buildings. We're running out of building. You know, that's why they're there. So, location 4 is up by the parking lot for the church area. That area right now, we do some stormwater cleaning, and so if the restroom was decided to go there, we would have to, you know, find some other way to treat the stormwater, which is not impossible to do. The laterals would have to go out into Pleasant Street, which is asphalt, you know, which would be a little bit easier, but once again, it's right along the walking route, which would see a lot of the weekly use. It would be visible from Village Green. Granted, it's further away from anything that's going to be happening at Village Green, but we also have to remember that we're not constructing these to handle the events at Village Green. These are for the daily and smaller usages that would be taking place in the area. Any larger event would have to bring in porta potties in addition to this. So those were the 4 areas that we'd put out there. And then earlier today, Alderman Mulder and actually last week, Alderman Rozak had questioned the area behind the et cetera where the dumpsters are now. So that's city parking lot, it's city-owned land. And actually back when Craig was working on the standalone restrooms, that was one of the options that was looked at. It would be the longest run of sanitary sewer and water all the way from Wisconsin Avenue, so we'd have to factor that in. But one of the things to keep in mind is that, you know, we're looking at expending those TIF 4 funds next year, or I'm sorry, this year for the reconstruction of Village Green. So if we had to run anything, we could do it then as part of that project. But the one thing, you know, in earlier discussions about that people liked about that site was that it's kind of in the middle. It's not taking up Village Green. It's visible. I think some of the drawbacks was, depending on how large the restroom was at the time, that now you're potentially putting the dumpsters very close to the boardwalk. We'd also have to look at the rear entrance of that building is a second access area. I'm not sure if that's required by code or not, so you'd have to look at that. So there are things for all the sites that we'd have to look at, but really the goal here was tonight just to find direction from the council of what site they felt most comfortable with, so that we could start, looking further into the feasibility of it.
And to kind of look at this from a big picture standpoint, I think we really need to get some bathrooms downtown. That needs to happen in 2024. I think we also have the best opportunity right now to use the low cost of the funds to be able to redo the Village Green. So it'll be a whole different thing for 2024. So what staff needs is we need a little bit of direction in your feelings on these different locations. And I would add in, we'll call it number 5, the sheet that goes around, and Mark will show you where that was going. And when we first started looking at bathrooms, I love the spot of taking the dumpster area and putting it there. And the downside is, where were we gonna put the dumpster? And so that's gotta be figured out. But actually, I had met with Matt earlier before the meeting, and Mulder had a good idea of actually creating an L shape around that side of the et cetera. Now again, there's a lot of due diligence that needs to be done. But if you created an L shape, you could maybe, an L shape wasn't something I've ever seen a plan of, or it's been discussed that I'm aware of. So let's call that number 5. But what we want to do today is we want to entertain ideas, thoughts, processes. If there's one everybody says, absolutely not, let's get rid of it. We also have Sarah Ninman, who's representing the Downtown Business District and the Chamber of Commerce. And so I would invite Sarah, once we go through some of our discussions, I'd like to get your viewpoint as well and have you come up to the podium if you'd like to speak. So,
You're in favor of restrooms?
okay. So let's open it up for discussion among council. Alderman Maroney.
I was just gonna say, I like 2 when I looked at it originally, but like the potential 5th option, the dumpster spot, I like those options simply because they're off of the road and they're off of the parking lot for public safety. I just think that access-wise, you're right on the Village Green. I kind of like that potential 5th option, because the thing I didn't like about 2 was it was just taking up Village Green space. But definitely 2 and 5 would be what I would lean toward.
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
One of my questions you already answered, so we don't know where we would move the dumpsters at this point?
We do not know.
Okay. Would number? Okay. Would number 5 impact any parking stalls?
Possibly.
Possibly.
Okay. So just, for the record, I'm not in favor of 1 or 2. Anything that takes up room on Village Green, especially like where number 2 is, like that side of Village Green. That's, during a beer garden or Fall Fest or whatever, that's a pretty hot-bit area. Number 4, I know we've talked about that one in the past, and it just seemed like, just cost-wise, that was a lot more, wasn't it?
No.
Wasn't? No?
No, you're looking at, roughly, the building costs would, if we're all talking the same floor plan for each
Yeah.
one of these areas, then the building cost is gonna be the same. So some of the things are gonna be your sanitary sewer and water laterals,
Yeah.
and that's the length of getting it there. Wisconsin Avenue, North Main Street, 8, 9 inches of concrete, it's expensive to get down through there, but it's a one-time expense. Are you paying $40,000 or $50,000 versus, maybe 30,000 for site 4? Yes, but
Okay.
you're looking at 20,000 on a $400,000 project.
Oh, okay. So I would be in favor, I would like to see what 5 would look like, otherwise 5 or 3. And at first I wasn't excited about 3 because in some ways it felt too far away from Village Green. But when you think about how many people use that back lot and then the boardwalk, it would just take a very, very short amount of time before residents realize there's a public restroom there. And we are a walking community. I think 3 would be just fine.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
I think I like the idea of 5 the best, as long as it doesn't, I don't know how, this real free-flowing area right now, people go in and out, even though the dumpsters are there. If that would just clog up that area, maybe not, but I really like that idea. I don't like number 3 by City Hall. I do think maybe down the road, we might be looking at putting in some restrooms again some point. It might not be maybe 10 years, 15 years, I don't know, depending on what we're all doing down here, because we're doing a lot of stuff. But I like 5, and I actually still don't mind 2, because I really did kind of like 2. I know that it encroaches on the Village Green, but I love the location. Are we going back to the drawing board with the design on this?
On the restrooms?
Yeah,
Well, I think we have the basic concept if we were looking at, you know, the 3 stalls.
okay,
Or 3 fixtures and a sink on each side.
okay,
That would serve a lot of the load that would go through that area.
okay.
It's not gonna take everything, but we could look at different configurations potentially.
Okay, my comment there, bear with me, women will understand. 3 and 3 is still inequitable to women, because women tend to use the restrooms more, and they have to use the stalls more than men, and the women are the ones that are more likely to bring the kids into the bathrooms. So I'm just wondering if we,
Are we allowed to do like 2 and 4? Can we do 2?
Yeah, we can do whatever we want. It's
We
just,
can do,
you know.
so we're not
Yeah.
I
held
mean, I'm
to
thinking
it.
even like your wife, and she's
No,
got
it's a
all
good
kids. and,
discussion.
you know.
Yeah, no, you put in the guys a sink, a urinal, and a toilet, and the women get 4 stalls and a sink or a double sink.
Yeah.
I'm completely for something like that.
So,
No, we're not locked in on
Okay.
any board plan.
we're just
That would
trying
make
to
an
use it.
L-shaped design that Matt talked about a lot easier to design and build in 5.
Absolutely.
That's true, yeah. I just wanted to put that out there early on as a thought.
That's fair.
And I'm
And
very
family-friendly,
interested.
I think, is important too.
Yeah.
In what?
Family-friendly is important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will be interested to hear Sarah's opinion on this, so.
Yep. Alderman Rozak?
I think 5 is the best number 1 viable option. The mayor did a good job getting everyone to combine the dumpsters into one spot. Unfortunately, that spot is literally, every time I walk that way, it looks horrible because the doors don't close, there's stuff leaking out, there's garbage flowing everywhere. It's like kind of this cool pinnacle area where people are walking through and it looks like crap. So to me, moving the dumpsters to another location that's maybe a little more hidden or maybe a little off the beaten track and putting in accessible restrooms there that meet people that are dropping their kayaks in can see it, people at Village Green can see it, people in the parking lot at Mullins. It stops the people from using routes. To me, 5 is the best option.
What
if it
about,
costs a little
what
more.
about putting, sorry to interrupt.
Oh,
but
no.
Put the dumpsters over at 4.
Over at what?
I was just gonna ask if we
Yeah.
could move
Oh.
the dumpsters, or even move the dumpsters over where we have that porta-john over by isn't there a porta-john over kind of by the boat launch?
Right.
There is.
You know,
Yeah,
kind of
there has
fence
to be.
that in and make
Yep.
that the dumpster area, because that is kind of, you don't,
Good
it's not a
idea.
spot that a lot of people walk by often.
And what Matt had also pointed out in our little pre-meeting on a couple other issues is, even if 5 bumps into Village Green a little bit there to make it fit, that's better than 1 and better than 2, because it's not taking up, it's already in a spot that's ugly and yucky and doesn't get a ton of foot traffic and frankly smells. So
Well, and
I
it
love
dep-
5. The other ones
Yeah.
I think are less viable. 3 will not get used. I don't think 4 will get used as much. 1 is awful. It blocks Village Green. 2 doesn't block as bad as 1, but still is a big kind of pimple on the side of that building. So
Yeah.
I'm for really looking heavy at 5 and trying to focus our efforts on it.
Alderman Douglas?
I guess, just a question that has run through my head. Are either one of these locations viable to be open year-round?
Anyone would be, because we would construct the restrooms knowing that they needed to be heated, so we'd insulate and construct them that way.
Perfect.
that would be good.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
what was kind of toying me
Sure,
back.
chili
to.
We
fest.
don't
Yeah.
really, we don't quiet
See,
down.
that's a
Al-
garage would be in a little.
Alderman Mulder?
Question for Sarah. If, thinking about the dumpsters, for some of the businesses right now, where it is right now behind, and et cetera, it's convenient for them. If the dumpsters moved over, all the way over to 4, does that become, I guess for some businesses it's better, for some it's worse?
I
Is
would
that-
say that would be a huge negative for them. That would be difficult for them. I think it would be hard even on the city from a cleanup standpoint. You will have that juice of all sorts dragged from across the
Oh,
parking
sure.
lot. You know, that happens. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got, garbage is garbage. People have to clean it up, make it look nicer as best they can. Unfortunately, that specific garbage, ours looks just as bad on the other side of, by the Avenue Square, but we've kind of covered that up too. And so that's partly on the owner to kind of make sure that looks better, especially when it's in such a high traffic area, right? I'm thrilled that we're talking about this again. I'm happy with any of the options, but I think 2 and potentially this 5, I think maybe the story will tell itself as we dig a little bit further. I think that they're the same, whether it's on that side or the back side. I think that they are equally distributed to where probably our best options, but I think thinking about what we talked about significantly was that 5 area was very hard to get to. The sewer it was gonna be a lot more expensive. You know, we dug into that in the very beginning when we started talking about this, and
That was because we weren't gonna rip up Village Green. If we rip up Village Green as part of the
Doesn't
whole
matter.
construction effort, we can drop those lines right in. We're talking about ripping all of Village Green.
I get that, which I'm also thrilled about as well, too. So I think 2 and 5 are equal. I think the businesses would struggle with throwing the garbage out if that's what you're asking, you know, put that in a different area. We've already moved the garbage a couple of times and congregated, so I don't know where else we can put that garbage back there. But always open to talk about that, but I just don't want, you know, some of those things to delay it or make it be a tougher decision, because I think 2 and 5 are kind of the same, whether it's a pimple on the back or the pimple on the side. But I also want to say, when we measured out 2, I know the sticky note looks like it's on the Village Green. It's not on the Village Green. It is on the garden area of the side of et cetera. When you are out there, it's not a huge footprint. We're not taking away the Village Green. I am super protective of that space as well. And to me, when you stand out there and you measure that, it was not a significant amount of taking away land. I just want to make sure that everybody kind of understands that when you're standing out there. And I would think we'd have to question on the back of 5, the traffic flow and what we see when we're back there. I don't think it's a bad option, but I think, you know, looking at that, is that going to be doable? Do we like the fact that we have a little bit more of that even blocked? How far does it go? Does it take away parking?
Okay, thank you. Alderman Mulder, was there more?
I'm good.
Okay. Alderman Ellis? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
I really do prefer, I like 2 or 5. Because after what you just stated anyway, 2 is not really taking up as much green as the sticky note is taking up at this point. 4 is too far away. 3, it's too tucked in. I don't know if anybody would even utilize it at first. Even though we do get a lot of foot traffic going towards the green. But I think with it being in 2 or 5 for that matter, I'd like to see that a little more in detailed.
Okay. Alderman Shellpepper,
Yeah, 5 would be with 5 and 3 as well, or 5 and 3. I know a lot of people haven't been in favor of 3, but I'd be interested in looking at 5, you know, further. So
Okay.
those are
So
my
what
top
I'm
2.
hearing so far from council is that 1 is out, 4 is out, 3 maybe, but probably is out, and the 2 primary ones are 2 and 5. And so if we can put a little bit more investigation into that, and then also put it
I think
on a
the
map.
majority of us were against 2.
I think it was 3 and 5, maybe.
3 and 5, I think, were the.
Oh, 3 and 5. I thought it was 2 and 5.
But there were a couple of us that would still like to look at the opportunity of 2,
Okay.
especially with Sarah's input.
Especially
With Sarah's input, the way she
2, 3, and 5. Get rid of 4 and 1.
Three's
Does
still
anybody
in
want
favor.
any analysis on 1 and 4?
No.
Okay. So I think we have enough information. If you have other thoughts, please send them off to Mark. I think what will also help is now that we can narrow it down, as we start working on the other plans, we can try to put things to scale, because it's really hard to do that. So, and then we'll do more investigation with the property owner that goes with 2-5, that building, so we can do a little more due diligence. Mark, do you have any other questions for staff or for
Well,
council?
actually, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, shoot.
How does that work for 2 or 5 with the fact that we would be building it off of a building that we don't own, where number 3, that's already city property?
It's 2 and 5 are on city property, and we are not connecting to the building. It'd be a separate standalone building, might only have a foot between them, but it would be masonry, so it would meet fire requirements,
Oh,
but we are not connecting.
okay.
But there would be an agreement with the property owner on
Correct.
2.
If the lawyers need one, yes.
Well, no, you don't want to, you wanted to have some connectivity and ability for the people in that property to utilize
Yeah.
it, last time I heard.
Yes.
On number
And-
two,
and-
that was one
And
of
the
the
building owner
plans,
was
so
very
yes.
supportive of a restroom there and the designs that we had brought forth at that time.
Eric, do you have any questions that you need council feedback on? No? Alderman Mulder?
So, one thing I asked Mark, the staircase that's there next to et cetera there's an easement for them to have that. And then where the dumpsters are currently, that is city property, so, that plan works, provided
Yeah,
that easement.
the building
can be-
footprint is their property, everything outside of that is city.
It's the city. Yep, okay. Well, thank you very much. Any other comments, Mark?
No, but I appreciate everybody's input, and we will start moving forward, and as we get information, I can either send things out directly to the Alderman or weekly updates. I know that when we looked at the standalone, we had dimensions for how far number 2 was coming out into the existing walkway. I should be able to get that probably by Friday and let you guys know what that was at, so that
Cool.
you'd be able to consider that.
And something too is we get it narrowed down because I think we all feel the same way about protecting as much of visually. We can always set stakes out and do different things where you can pop over and take a look. So, but we have some discussions first with the property owner. I'd like to,
I'm sorry, I have
Go
one
ahead.
more. I say I have nothing and then I do. On number 2, I think what was particularly offensive to me before is how close it was to Wisconsin Avenue. If that was down and parallel with the back of et cetera, or further that way, I know there was the plan to put a potential garage door in there by the owner. That tucks it out of the sight line a little bit more, and I think it would feel less obtrusive. I'm still not really in favor of it, but I think having it right up near the front was really, it really made it feel like we're.
But wouldn't their staircase be in the way then if you pushed it
You're looking
back?
at the
Well, we just have
staircase.
to maybe relocate that.
Well,
we
That's not-
gave
that
them
should
the
be
easement.
easy.
So there was some thoughts and consideration of that, so we'll reach back out to the building owner.
Okay.
Now that we know that that's, one of the primary locations, and just reiterate where they're at with their thoughts.
Sarah, any last comments you want to share?
Just remember that behind them, it was part when we added those awnings and it became side, whether it's on the side or in the back, from an aesthetic standpoint, we created.
Yep.
It did look very.
Yep.
And made that better. And then just think about in that back 5, and in number 5, of the potential jumping from the staircase. Had some of that, people getting on the roof, is that gonna be another thing? Some people that hazardous back there versus the inside.
Great, thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Is this anything you need, Lori?
Opposed? All right. All right, so we're going to take just a minute to switch computer programs, and we'll get started with our city council meeting here in just about a minute. Thank you all for your patience. If you're here for the city council meeting and you want to make a comment about any topic that you want to share with the council, there are blue cards right up here at the podium. Please fill out a blue card, and during our comments and suggestions from citizens, you can make a comment to the alderman.
You want, Mayor?
You ready?
At night, yep.
Okay.
Okay.
He needs some work, man.
Everybody ready?
Those are throwing stuff out, I'm shocked.
But he is a stubborn guy.
Go sit down.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the City of Oconomowoc Common Council meeting for Tuesday, January 16th, 2024. Has appropriate meeting notification been made?
Yes, Your Honor, it has.
If we'd all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you and welcome, everyone. Would you please call roll?
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Here.
Alderman Ellis.
Here.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Here.
Alderman Mulder. Alderman Shell Pepper.
Here.
Alderman Maroney.
Here.
Alderman Douglas.
Here.
Alderman Rozak.
I'd like to entertain a motion for the approval of minutes for December 19th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
On to comments and suggestions from citizens. So I do have one comment card that's here. When you come up to the podium, you have a total of 3 minutes to share your comments with the council. It's a one-way discussion where you're just sharing your point. It's not a debate. And if you'd please state your name, your address, and we'd love to hear what you have to say.
Awesome, yeah, I appreciate you guys hearing me out. So I'll keep it quicker than the 3 minutes. So my name is Joe Stanton. I'm actually not a resident of Oconomowoc. I live in Milwaukee right now, but wanted to come tonight just to share a couple of comments and thoughts, my opinion on the potential change to the housing ratio, which I know is going to be discussed later in the staff report. As you could imagine, I work for a development firm called Three Leaf Partners, so just wanted to strongly suggest not changing the housing ratio for a few different reasons. Reason number one, as a developer, we see strong need for multifamily housing in the Oconomowoc area, and we have market studies from professionals that obviously back that up. Some of what does exist of the the multifamily product in town is a little bit dated, so there is a need potentially for a newer multifamily product to help attract more young professionals and families to continue growing the tax base in the economy of Oconomowoc. And then, lastly, I just wanted to mention, multifamily development of, anywhere from 200 units or so in size could mean an additional $500,000 of an add to the tax base, which could be huge for the community as well. So, and then lastly, the increase in population and the offerings of these newer multifamily products can help attract, other major employers, which would lead to, a growing population and more increase to home values as well throughout Oconomowoc. So I just wanted to share my opinion on those couple of notes, to again strongly suggest voting no on changing the housing ratio when that vote does happen. So I appreciate you hearing me out. Thanks.
Thank you for coming. And council, if you'd please put your phones on silence.
I thought I did already.
Do we have any other
So his
comments
phone's
from
flying.
anyone in the audience? This is the only blue card I have.
Wait till yours goes off.
I already turned mine on silent.
I mean, at least have music like Lori gives us.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Then we'll go ahead and move on from our comment section to our consent agenda items. I'd like to entertain a motion for the 3 consent agenda items located in item 6.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Before they do that, one of the changes we made on this agenda is that normally Plan Commission items are handled under a separate committee report, and Jason would come up and a lot of times talk about extraterritorial zonings and things like that where it was minor lot splits. Comments had come up, why aren't we just handling these more efficiently? So this will be the first time we're trying to put a Plan Commission item under consent agenda. As the council knows, that anything on the consent agenda can be removed, so if we come through with a Plan Commission item that you would like to have more discussion on, or any of the items on there, you can always vote to have it removed, but we'd like to start in order to be more efficient. Now, I burned up all the time we're gonna save by giving this explanation, but hopefully I only have to do it the one time. So thank you.
No, thank you, Mark. And the other thing is we won't put an extraterritorial certified survey map if it hasn't been recommended by the Plan Commission. The one that's in front of you was unanimously approved. For recommended, I should say. Alderman Ellis,
Does everybody know what that's about, the extraterritorial?
it's in your packet.
I understand, but I just want to. Okay.
So unless somebody wants to pull anything out, I'm happy to entertain a motion.
Rosick, so
Motion.
moved.
Second.
Second, Spiegelberg, any comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And it passes, thank you. And thank you for the clarification, Mark. On to committee reports.
You're gonna sign?
Oh, I need to sign that for the applicant, so if you want to give it to me with a pen, that would be great.
With the pen, there's 2 spots.
Sorry for the delay. Mr. Lundy, if you'd like to come up, you'll have your documents. He drove up from Florida, which sounds like some horrible
Oh, my goodness.
traffic or horrible wet weather, and is heading back tomorrow, I think. So that's why we interrupted, so we got these plot mats signed off on. Okay, let's move on, please.
Oh, okay, never mind, you'll read it.
On to committee reports, protection and welfare. Consider act on resolution
I might
24.
want to say something.
Oh, do you want to
I
say
just
something?
got to
Doug?
say, can't hear you very well because I got my eardrums wrecked in the Army, so
Yeah,
just,
You're good.
you're good to go.
It's approved.
all right.
And drive safely back to Florida. Doug spends the winters in Florida.
Yeah, is it,
It's
Okay.
done. You're good.
I'm good?
You're good.
Okay.
Take care, Doug. Okay, we're off to consider act on resolution 24-R3169, granting new 2024 Class B intoxicating liquor fermented malt beverage license to Rubens LLC.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Conan.
The city has received an application for a new Class B intoxicating liquor fermented malt beverage license from Ruben, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing it, Cervera.
Yes,
And-
that's fine, yes.
And this is a former space of Bubbles and Bourbon. On the end of November, the owner of that business closed the doors and surrendered the liquor license. Came into the office, said that she was closing and surrendered the liquor license, which meant that the liquor license now was back in the city's possession and it was available for issuance. It's a regular $600 license. Mr. Severa came into City Hall with application and applied for that license. He is now looking to open his establishment called Rubens. I think he's targeting January 24th, but it could be any day after approval.
Ruben, if you could just give us a little update as to who you are, what you're doing, and when you're going to open, and tell us about what you're planning, I think.
Well,
the
I'm planning on
community
opening,
would
my
like-
name is Ruben Severa, and I'm from New Berlin, and I plan to open up an upper-class lounge here in Oconomowoc that was brought to my attention with my previous owner that was Bubbles and Bourbon, but it didn't work out that way, so the way it was supposed to be for more of a place where people can relax, enjoy comfort, piano music, really elegant, not a lot of gambling machines or nothing like this, more like a lower key type club and high, good bourbons, relaxing type style, atmosphere for everybody. I redid the whole inside. It looks pretty nice. It's not like it was. And I just tried to bring something different to Oconomowoc, like something that maybe people might like, or, no pool tables, no darts, nothing like that. Just something where you can just relax. Business people can come down and have, socialize or whatever it may be.
And when do you plan on opening?
Well, hopefully I plan on opening January 24th.
January 24th, okay.
So, it's been a long way for me to be here in front of you, and I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be here. So, but that is what I have on my table right now, and it looks pretty nice. And I have my manager, Marie, which she's a great woman. Without her, I wouldn't be here. But that's where I'm at here. And my son here is my agent. He's my son, Aiden, where he's the one that applied for us. So we're all together in this. That's my daughter, Avea. So we're all here just trying to make things work if possible.
Council members, do you have any questions for this applicant? Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Well, I do. You had mentioned something about the gambling machines. So did you remove those? Because those were in there with the previous owner.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we did, because the agreement wasn't with the right vendors, and the ones who were there were kind of got like hurt because of what had happened. So
Yeah.
I had made an agreement when I came into there that I was gonna take them all out, but it was brought to my attention by my manager that people were like, maybe, not so many gambling machines or whatnot. So I moved them from where the section where they were at, and I bought them and I put them back towards the end of the bar. There's only two of them in there.
Because that was the one, that was interesting, because the one complaint that I heard from two different people about Bubbles and Bourbon was that the gambling machines just kind of killed the vibe.
Yeah.
And that they were tacky, and that wasn't the place for it. So originally, I was kind of excited thinking you got rid of them altogether.
Yeah, well, what you see, where I'm sitting at that, the situation is that, there was 5 in there, and, the person who put all the wiring and all that in there prior to when the work was going on, I had an agreement with him, and I usually stand to my word, and when all that happened, I felt bad because I owed him some money, and I told him that I would bring him in, and then when the time came, I did not know this situation but it was brought to my attention, so I tried to work with it, so I'm trying to, at least trying to give them some business. So I moved them way in the back. They're not going to be in the area where the atmosphere is really at, like towards the back door. So there's only 2 of them and 1 jukebox, and that's it. No pull tabs, no dark table, no, nothing like this. More nice drinks, elegancy, professional.
Thank you.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Well, welcome, and my suggestion would be, if you can get in by January 24th, you'll hit it right before Chili Fest, because there's going to be a lot of foot traffic downtown, and if you enter the chili contest, you'll get even more individuals inside your
good
building to
point.
see what you're doing, and
Right, and I hear a lot of news around Oconomowoc. People are excited, and I'm really excited to meet all these new people and bring this business to Oconomowoc. And it's, yes, I will try to get it there, if I get granted this wish here, I'll be on my way.
Other questions from council?
Good luck. I love bourbon, so good luck.
I'm gonna give you a word, and we're gonna be high end. Like I said, a good manager here. She's got more knowledge, a little bit more in the liquor business, but I'm sure we're gonna have everything that everybody needs.
Oh, good. And Ms. Conan, we're all good with the property owner on this?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Severa has a lease for the space, and all the Chapter 12, our code, and the state statute requirements, he has met all of them, all the paperwork's in order, and also some of the paperwork that we require, it's in the packet, council packet. So there is no reason from my standpoint that the license should not be granted.
Great. I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Rozak, second.
Any further discussions or comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Maroney.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I
Hope
really
you can get to
appreciate
there
it.
on the
I have a
24th.
5-year lease. I'm gonna do my best as I can, and I will prosper with everybody here. I'm glad to be part of your community.
I do want to make a comment. I echo what Alderman Altman-Cloth said with the gambling machines.
Yes.
Completely killed the vibe.
Yeah,
I
I've really been thinking about that because the atmosphere that I have, we shouldn't have it in there. So it's like, it's really hard for me to tell the guy that.
Well, it's
We
a
just want
moneymaker,
you to be
too.
in business
for
10
him.
years from now.
Yeah, and I have my family here, and my son and they're all going to school to be business. So yes, I plan on doing the same. Thank you very much.
Good luck to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
On to our next item in new business, a presentation or update from Bethany Recovery Center for the group living use at 1331 West Capitol Drive.
The applicant was informed of the meeting tonight. She's not here. I just went outside. I was looking for Deb Adamus. I recommend we postpone this, but if you want me to give an overview, I can. I also spoke with Western Lakes Fire District on the number of service calls. I have a printout showing the number of calls.
I would suggest to council that we wait and have them present it. Unless there's an objection, I would say we postpone. Do I have an objection?
No.
This item will be postponed. We'll move on to our next item. Consider act on resolution 24-R3170 opposing 2023 Senate Bill 691 regarding the creation of urban towns. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mayor. Recently, legislation was proposed that, if passed, would allow towns that met certain criteria to self-designate themselves as an urban town. One of that criteria was a population of 5,000. And when you look at the 1,200 towns that exist within the state of Wisconsin, right now 32 of them would meet that requirement. Whether or not they would meet the other ones, we didn't dig that far, but this is legislation that would impact the villages and cities that abut these 32 towns. So the legislation, as it was proposed, would impact extraterritorial zoning and plat review, annexations, and utility connections. And 3 of the potential towns are close to the city of Oconomowoc, town of Merton, town of Oconomowoc, and then the town of Exonia. Currently, when you talk about the utility connections, 5 of our 8 sanitary districts lie in those 2 towns, Exonia and the town of Oconomowoc. So we had a lot of concerns with it. We'd put together an email that went out to our legislators, letting them know where we stood on it. There was a public hearing where we spoke at, and this resolution will get distributed to the appropriate people in Madison. But at the public hearing, in the opening comments from the authors of it, they realized that there was a lot of issues that, when it came to the utilities, so they indicated right away they were gonna come forth with an amendment to remove any of the wording about utilities within SB 691. We still included all that information in the resolution that's in the packet tonight because we haven't seen that amendment come through yet. And we also want to go on record that, should it come back, that, there's a lot of reasons why we're not supportive of that. So that left the zoning and then the annexations. And so on the annexation side, right now in the state of Wisconsin, that you can do an annexation where only 51% of the property owners within the annex area support it. And they wanted to change that to make it 100%. Now, the League of Wisconsin Municipalities did some checking, and there's a large number of annexations that take place that are unanimous support. A lot of these are probably one or two property owners trying to bring in land for development or something like that. So yeah, you're gonna see a high percentage. It was upper 90% of annexations that come through. There have been some issues in the northern part of the state between some of the cities and a couple of the towns that spoke at this public hearing, where I got to learn what really the big core issues were. And unfortunately, they're trying to put a one-size-fit-all legislation on something that is unique and different from one city, town, location to another. So the city's opposed to this. We don't think it's good planning. We think it actually forces bad planning, and that's why we spoke against it and are asking for support on the resolution.
So I'd like to open it up for discussion. Mark went to Madison last week during the public hearing on this, and I fully support the comments that he made. I think it's in our city's best interest to pass this resolution, but I'd like to open it up for discussion. Any comments, questions? It's pretty straightforward, I believe.
The only question I had for you, Mayor, or for Mark, have you guys reached out to our state senator or state assemblywoman?
Yes.
Are they, what's their position? Have they made that known? Can we say that, or is it unclear?
It's unclear. They haven't given us feedback. It hasn't come to the House yet. So we've gotten feedback from Representative Dietrich that she's happy to talk more about it and learn more about it. But it's at the Senate right now. And all the information went to both Senator Jagler and to Representative Dietrich.
I'm glad we.
Unless, Mark, did you have any
I have not heard
conversations?
from
Well,
Senator Jagler.
I plan to engage with them as well. I'm against the urban town, the suburban urban town concept is a bad idea for cities. It really hamstrings us. So glad that you guys put this together. Thank you for the effort.
Yeah. Well, and this is, to get a little background on it, this is one of the benefits of the League of Municipalities, is trying to keep us informed. So we make our own decisions as council in the city, but they help to keep us up to date as to what's coming to Madison and to the floor. Alderman Shellpepper.
I was just saying, I would have the idea that if it got assigned to the committee and it got the public hearing, that it's probably backed by the GOP leadership to some extent, which means Dietrich and Jagler would probably be behind it overall, but.
Well, I know the city of Watertown's
Sure,
against it, for
but,
sure.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's definitely like a play in terms of, legislators who represent towns, a lot of towns. So they're looking out for their constituents. And I think, from our perspective, it hurts us as a city. I don't think it's a good thing for us as a city, and being on a, a board, a council that represents a city, it makes sense for us to, be against it, I think. But we should pick and choose our battles, I think, also as to what we're weighing in on. And we don't want, because there are things that we're looking from the state, so we don't want to necessarily hurt our chances of getting some of those things by wading into some of these topics. But I understand what we have at stake and what we have on the line as well.
And there have been a handful of cities that have passed resolutions already. I saw 3 of them.
Well, one was Madison, though, right? I mean,
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know who they all were. Do you?
I just remember Kakana, was it Sun Prairie?
I think Sun Prairie.
Yeah, ones that we saw, but, so,
Two of the other fastest growing cities in the state that are probably looking at annexation over the years.
So the biggest reason, there's a lot of opposition to how this was put forth is the fact that there are laws in place that allow incorporation, right? And what they're doing is they're circumventing them. They're making a town a quasi-village or city with being self-designated, mind you, They don't have to go through all the steps that it takes to do that properly under the law now. So we're wondering why they're giving that opportunity to 32 out of 1,200 towns in the state of Wisconsin. When, you know, when I spoke about the positive things from the city of Oconomowoc, how we had issues with the town of Summit for many years with past farms. We were in lawsuits all the time. And we put together a border agreement where we know where everything's gonna go. We made agreements that, you know, they get some of our services. We transferred lands. We did all that. And it's worked out well for us on that side of the city. We have the sanitary districts for areas that needed the sanitary sewer. The city did step up and try to protect the lakes. That's where the majority of the sanitary districts are. It's all the properties around lakes. So, you know, there are things that can be done, but this really took away any negotiation power that a city had in providing those services or anything there. You know, it took that away. So that was the big concern.
Other questions or comments from council? If not, I'd like to entertain a motion.
Rozak, so moved.
Second.
Any further discussions or comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Maroney.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Now, Jason, I just saw you bring that up. I thought you were bringing us candy. A little box.
Oh, cake or candy tonight?
Donuts, come on.
Next up, we have a staff report from the planning department. Mr. Gallo is going to do a presentation, a discussion on housing ratios. So if you sit back and remember, we had an initial presentation. You had some additional questions, and Jason has gone in to pull out more information and data and for you. And tonight is just a discussion. The plan is to have an action item on the first council meeting in 2 weeks in February, was it February 2nd? 6th? February 6th. So Jason, I'll turn it over to you and go from there.
Thank you. The highlight of the night, big housing update, staff report. I wanted to give you a little packet that I handed out so you can follow along. I have the PowerPoint presentation in the packet starting on page 2. Then I put together a fact sheet just to kind of have some of these, there's a lot of numbers, so you could have that available. I thought it was really important to go back to the basics and look at the comprehensive plan 2050 that was adopted in 2019. And some of the things regarding housing, single family versus multifamily is on page 45, the life cycle housing, and then the housing mix policy. It's all in there on page 47 there of the comp plan. I thought those were important. I was asked to provide to you the housing study that we did in 2022 from the planning intern, Rachel. She presented that to you, most of you. Maybe Alderman Maroney wasn't here. And then I have some spreadsheets, and I'll go through that. So, as Mayor said, I presented you a presentation of housing ratios back on November 21st. And at that time, there was a really good discussion, and you guys asked me to bring back some additional information. And actually, you guys said the first meeting or in January. So we're at the meeting in January. So I want to just bring back some of this to you to remember. We did a comprehensive plan 2050, and we established a housing mix policy in that plan, and it said we should review this and update on at least a 5-year basis. So it's been 5 years. All the projects that we've been approving of late have been really multifamily in some sort, either a condominium or an apartment. And last time I was up here in November, I said how apartments do play an important role in the whole housing diversity of the community, but there is a ratio, and how much is too much. So we have to kind of think about that. So in 2010, we established that policy, single family and versus multifamily, 60-40. Then in 2019, it was decided, some of these condominiums that are $1 million, these people stay here, they build roots, they volunteer, they do a lot of things. That was changed to be owner occupied versus renter, and that moved all the condominiums into that 60%. So that percentage actually went, the renter occupied went down then, the multifamily. And then in late of 2023, the Plan Commission decided to change that ratio, keep it owner occupied versus renter, but change it to 68-32. And that gives us a total of 416 units of apartments that we can bring into the city and still be in compliance with our land use plan. That was a recommendation. You guys have not acted on that. I would like to bring forth an ordinance, that's how you amend your comp plan, to the next available meeting, possibly in February. So I'm going to go through 3 options, try to keep it very straightforward. We keep that policy owner occupied versus renter occupied. You could make the case that condominiums should be owner occupied. I provided you a spreadsheet. It's in your packet. It's dated October at the bottom, because that's the one that I started with. And the percentage, and we haven't added any new housing since this, so this is still current numbers. 70-30, we'll call it, okay? 70-30. And that does include, I thought it's really important, the Olympia area, because some of you may ask, well, hey, we've just did a lot of housing out in Olympia. No, that does include those numbers. Now, we have a pipeline of multifamily projects, and that would be renter occupied, and we have 0 single family that are talking to me right now. I know of some lands that could go, but no plans are in. But we do have 4 multifamily projects. That's these. Most of you have seen these. The mixed-use building up in the corner here is 116 units. That's in a TIF area. So it's a very high-priced building that we did grant some, if you want to call, I don't know if you'd want to call it vested or not. It's because it's part of a PD that we said a mixed-use building would go there. Mixed use mean non-residential and residential. We gave a building height requirement, so it's kind of, we knew that was going to happen. On the original plans, they had 2 different wings. They've kind of connected the 2 together. Then in the Paps Farms, we have 2 projects. We have Wingspan. They've came and presented to you. And they showed 171 units down in Paps Farms. Again, they don't have any approvals from the council, but it's out there. And then we have Capri Communities. They came and presented. And the total campus is about 250 units, but I'm only counting 204 because when you have these adult care campuses, I'm not counting the assisted living or the memory care, only what's called independent living. That's just, to me, a fancy term for apartments for older people. So there's 204 independent living there. And then we have another project, calling it the Northeast Apartments. We had someone here earlier this evening speak on this behalf. They're asking for 220 units. This is been submitted to my office for public hearing, and we sent it to the paper, so we are taking this forward. What does this mean? It means we have a total of 711 unapproved apartment units in that pipeline. We have 0 single-family homes. So if you take the, excuse me, the 711 renter-occupied units that's being proposed, the numbers would change from 70% to 66%, and from 30% renter-occupied up to 33 or 34%. I just feel it's important that we track this and we share this information with you and where we're going. Now, we have a lot of single-family homes in that have been approved that haven't been built. These numbers are included already in your spreadsheets, but I want you to, the question may be asked, well, how is, when Arrowwood gets fully built out, how's that gonna impact this? It's not gonna change it at all. We have about, I calculated around 616 single-family homes approved and not built. I don't know how many we do a year, it depends, but maybe around 100 homes.
80 to 100.
80 to 100 homes a year. So we have maybe a 6 to 7 year supply of single-family homes, depending on a lot of factors, interest rates and everything else. Arrowwood, we approved over 300 units. There's 270 left. Old Highlander, that's the Olympia area, the Newman stuff, they haven't even started yet, so 186. Prairie Creek Ridge, it's an estimate about 150, and Morgan Station, 10 left. These will not change the ratio, and there's, again, no single-family homes in the pipeline. So once again, if we approve those, we'd be at 66-33. And I want to get back to the ratio that's currently on the books is 60-40, so we can approve all 711 and be completely in compliance. We have to get to the 60-40, we'd have to approve 1,848 units. So we'd have another 1,000 to go. Again, 60-40 is what's in the plan. If we approve all four, we'll have an additional 1,000 rental units still as a buffer to come in. So I took that and I think, well, 1,000 additional units beyond the 7-Eleven is too much. We don't have the land to do that. So I recommended to the Plan Commission a percentage 65-35. This allows for all those four projects to be approved, and we'd have a buffer of approximately maybe one more project, about 200 more units. Last time I showed you other communities, and I think this is what's got you guys thinking, because the way other communities do it is not renter occupied versus owner occupied. They do single family, duplex, and MF stands for multifamily. So, I took a look at that as well. But again, to get to the 60-40 ratio, owner occupied would be at 1,848 additional rental units, and we have that 711 in the pipeline. My ratio, 65-35, would be 920 rental units, so we'd still have 209 left over. You could go 2/3 versus 1/3, kind of makes sense, and that'd be 580, but that does not allow all four of those developments to go forward. You'd have to start picking and choosing which ones, and then what the Plan Commission recommended is only 416 units. So now with 711, it'd be 300 units. And then there was just a last one, I just wanted to show 70-30, be 104 rental units to get to that percentage. So we had a chart that I put up last time, and then we crossed 60-40 off. We thought that's not really realistic. We looked at 70-30 is not realistic. So we said those three options in there, but again, 711, and we'd be somewhere in this range here. Again, the Plan Commission, 68-32. They added language, it should not go below 68 unless the city feels the development is worthy, potentially like a redevelopment project or some other factors that you guys could come up with. We recommend amending a definition so that it would not go below a threshold. We don't have that currently. Rezonings would not be granted if it's not in compliance with the ratio. But properties that have zoning in place today could be determined as vested. So then you could maybe go over that number because you'd have to, they already have zoning. Okay, option 2 is to change it. You guys said, Jason, take a look at single family, multifamily, and duplex. So I did that, and that's on one of your charts. We have 10,500 units approved right now. They're not all built. But that breaks down to 6,400 single-family, 3,500 multifamily. We have 508 duplex units. So our current percentage is this. If we add that 700 multifamily directly, and again, what I'm doing is I'm taking the condominium buildings like Fowler Lake Village and Eagles Landing, we're putting those into multifamily. So we would be adding additional multifamily units. We'd be at 57%, 37, and then 4.5.
Casey, can I ask one question?
Sure.
Would duplexes be, are duplexes just rentalers? Could duplex also be side-by-side condos like a Village Crossing?
Village Crossing is a duplex, not a,
Multifamily is like basically two or more.
right.
And it can be renter or
Or
owner.
condo, right? Okay.
So this is how other communities, look at the ratio. So if you start looking at these numbers compared to that chart I showed of all the other communities, would be lower.
Could you go back to that chart?
Oh, boy.
So I mean, like Waukesha 65, single family 35 other, we're currently at 5842. So we're at, yeah, the West Bend range. You look at those, and it's no wonder people are building apartments in Oconomowoc.
Well, yeah.
And these numbers, I should state,
They can't build them anywhere else.
are from 2010, and, that is
That's old.
14 years ago. The trend lately has been more apartments. So I would think that a lot of these, and these were potentially their policy. I don't know what their actual numbers are at. So there's a lot of variables. This was, when I contacted Sewer Pack, he said these are the best numbers we have available. Take it for what they're worth. So one option would to go with that single-family, multifamily duplex, and you change it to be in line with those other communities, 60, 35, 5. That would only give us a very little bit of additional multifamily. You could say 60, 35, 5, but this would allow for about 200 additional units of multifamily could go in under that scenario. So that's not really allowing a lot of multifamily. You'd really have to drop down to like a 55, 40, 5. This would allow all 711 projects in the pipeline and then an additional 300 apartments. If you chose to go with this policy back to single-family, multifamily duplex, and you said, well, we're going to have this percentage. Then the last thing that I think we maybe touched upon briefly at the last meeting in November was how do you treat elderly apartments? And I explained that when there's a facility like the Evan that might have memory care, assisted living, those weren't included. And even in the report that I handed out that Rachel did, she had a whole page, a disclaimer saying these weren't included. The Evan is a unique one. It's got all three. It's got independent living, memory care, and assisted living. Only the independent living, the apartments were put in there. So we could remove the elderly apartments because they don't have the same traffic patterns. They don't leave at 8 in the morning and come home at 5. They just, it's a little different. Maybe we don't have to try that. So I said, well, I'll take a look at elderly. And I came up with a list of 9 elderly housing projects that are existing and 1 is proposed. Capri Communities is proposed. And I added up all the care units and then the apartments. And I did the best I could. I went on websites, and sometimes they're not so straightforward. But I know Shorehaven's got units on both the north side of the street and the south side of the street. They have Lake Terrace Apartments on the north, that, I believe that's got 94 apartments. So we have 327 apartments for elderly. It's not a huge number. It won't move the dial too much one way or another. It's not like I found 3,000 units. And then we have some proposed as well, you know, because what Capri is proposing is 200 care units and then 52 independent living.
Jason, can I ask a question? So if you were to kind of pull out the elderly housing, does that kind of open it up that, so if that's not in the ratio, that we could end up having more elderly housing developments in the city because then they don't have to comply with the 60/40 or whatever the number ends up being? Because here's my concern. I live very close to Evan. And it's pretty constant sirens that I just want to be careful that we're not going to open the door to allowing, we're going to restrict apartments, but then we're going to allow all this elderly housing building, which are basically apartments, and then we're putting a huge burden on Western Lakes.
So I'm going to jump in on that. So Jason, Lori, myself, and Brad Bowen, we've been working on the financial impact of senior or specialty type housing. You'll have that information before the next council meeting because we're looking at the financial impact. It's really pretty interesting. And I think, as Jason said in here, maybe our best approach long-term is to look at senior living or specialty living differently. I don't know quite what that differently looks like, but I think you're spot on in what is the impact in the other areas. So,
I mean, I guess I'm okay with pulling it out as long as we have something to make sure that we don't become a senior
I agree, yeah.
living development.
Well, and there are things too we can look at as different zoning for senior living. There's a lot of different things, but it's something that we or a future council is going to have to address because of the population, the aging population, and it's a really good point. And the amount of data that Jason has given me, and as we look at this, and you'll see the spreadsheets, you're going to have even a lot more questions. I think our goal is to try to come up with, are we comfortable putting something in our next comprehensive plan that's a guideline? It's not set in stone, but a guideline. And then also, how do we address those projects that are already in queue, that have been to a staff meeting, that have come to us? Do they get grandfathered in? Do they not? How does that work? Because you can put apartments up very quickly, but it takes a long time to get a lot of houses built. So we want to look at, what do you want the city to look like? Alderman Spiegelberg.
I like the fact that we're going to look into this a little bit more, but I'm not so sure that at this point I would like to see these senior apartments taken out of this mix. And the reason I say so is because all of these places, you can be 55 and go in there. So a lot of people are downsizing early, but they don't want to buy something else. So at age 55, very active, they still have jobs or whatever, they're going into these independent apartments, which makes them pretty much like anybody else, any other 55-year-old in another apartment. So I think we need to keep that in mind, too.
Right, that's what we felt initially. That's why we included them. We did take out the care facilities, the memory care and assisted living, but we felt that these were, independent living should be counted as an apartment. But I wanted to show you what it did if we did take them out.
Alderman Mulder?
So, once all 600 of those single-family homes are built, if there's average of $500,000, that's probably low. That's $300 million in incremental value. What kind of increment will we get from the 700 units? Do you have any, Lori, do you have any way to evaluate what kind of value those bring in terms of adding to the tax base at a unit level?
They don't come in at a unit level.
And that is for which, and that was, how many units was that? That was the
300.
300. So I mean, if that's 300 of the 700 is 60 million, we can probably guess that all 700 is 150 million. I mean, so the value of single family is, I'm just doing the math in my head, value of a single family home is perhaps double that of an apartment unit.
Depending upon density, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, right, I'm just trying to get a sense
Sure.
of when we're approving apartments,
Yeah,
we're getting less for it.
Well, that was my question.
good point.
I had asked on several occasions, what were we getting as far as a city for single-family homes as compared to apartments? And it's my understanding that average for the single-family home is about 3,500. So when you consider, we have 616
In city tax, I think you're.
City tax,
city tax,
Okay,
yeah.
not total tax, okay.
Right, not total, city. That's 2.1. Now, I still don't have an answer on the tax associated with the apartments or multifamily or whatever, duplex, whatever you want to call
Well,
them.
you're talking a whole different
Different
thing
thing.
when you come to the finances and the economics. That they have consultants that do cost of community services. You know, when you're talking single-family homes, as Alderman Mulder brought up, I mean, they bring children to the school system.
Right.
Apartments really don't. We've proven that
Correct.
last time. I had that slide up. So there's a whole thing that you have to look at. I'm not capable of answering those
I was
questions.
just doing net new construction.
Yeah, you know,
Well, and part of what we're trying to accomplish is a guideline for future developments, 5, 10 years down the road. Because this will hopefully be looked at again in another 5 years. Alderman Douglas.
I guess I'm not really following this whole thing because the way I'm looking at it in my head, not that I'm for more apartments, but the value of an apartment building on that acre of property is gonna be valued more than 3 houses on that acre of property. So, you know, so it's comparing apples to oranges, I guess, regarding
Well,
that
it
part
is,
of
I
it.
mean, yeah, and it's, a lot of it's
But
philosophy of
I
what do
do
we want the
appreciate
city to
numbers,
look
'cause
like.
that's where I
And
always look.
that's really what's driving this whole discussion. What do you want Oconomowoc 10 years, when you look back at the housing and the housing mix, what do you think we should have the city look like?
Well, I think you also have to take into consideration the school part of this, because as it's already been mentioned, with single-family homes, the probability of there being 1 or 2 or 3 children in the district is greater than those that are in apartments. If we begin the process of creating more multifamily or duplexes or apartments, as I call them, I think over a 5 or 10 year time period, we could actually be taking away from the school and not adding to the school. Thus, there are areas very close to Oconomowoc that have had that issue, and the school systems have really, really, really deteriorated because of it. We need to be very sensitive to that, very sensitive. So whereas we think it's going to be easier for an apartment to go up and not the single-family home, over a very long period of time, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, I think that quite the opposite happens. I believe that we become more vibrant because the school system becomes more vibrant. I'll just leave it at that.
So we're getting back to senior living units in the city. There's a policy there that you have to direct staff of, you know, how do you want to treat these? Do we leave them in? Do we take them out? I initially took them, I left them in, but then upon our discussion last time, I did a breakdown of what it would look like if they were removed. Single family would be at 63, multifamily would be at 31, and duplex at 5. So we could change the policy not to include senior housing in the calculation. Does not make a large change, but it could be important, as Jennifer Moncloth, Alderman, said, because we could get additional senior projects in the future. I've read a lot of articles about how this is a missing component of housing and how there's gonna be a big need for housing. And if we did this change, this would remove Capri Communities apartments from that mix. So the first question I would have is, for you to direct me, do you want to change the policy to remove elderly apartments from the calculation, or do we leave those in? It does not impact the community as much as other developments, so maybe you're like, yeah, we can remove that. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah.
Leave them in.
Leave them in.
Leave them in.
Yeah.
Leave them
They're
in.
apartments.
Okay. Should we, question 2 is keep current policy owner occupied versus renter and come up with percentages, or should we change it to single family, multifamily duplex?
So I generally, can I speak, Mayor? Sorry.
Sure, go
He was
ahead.
gonna rule you out of order.
Can you?
May I speak? I do agree with the sentiment that owners have a bigger stake in the community than renters. I just don't think that applies in this argument. I think that, the single-family, multifamily duplex is the right way to do it, because that talks a lot more about the consumption of resources. It talks a lot more about the way the community is viewed. The way I was surprised as I was going out and getting signatures, I only had to get 20, so I probably talked to 15 homes, and I think half of them brought up development. And they weren't talking about how many homes, they're talking about how many apartments. So I think that the multifamily duplex, condos, apartments, right? They're talking about multifamily buildings is what they're seeing and questioning. So I'm strongly in favor of moving it back to single-family, multifamily duplex, or
Alder-
adjusting it to that.
Attorney Riffle?
I do want to weigh in on this because an owner may choose to live in their property, or they can choose to rent their property. There's no way you can police this. Constitutionally, we have a right to do with our property as we wish. And I've always been concerned about this being in a policy, because you can't regulate it. People have a right to do with their property as they see fit. You're gonna go out and go to every door and find out if they're owner occupied, and if they aren't and they're renting it, what are you gonna do about it? You can't do anything. So I'm very concerned about this in our, as it has historically gone through this city. So I had to speak up on that.
Yeah, but if I can ask a clarifying question to that. So we've had it as part of the comprehensive plan. There's all sorts of things in the comprehensive plan that we don't necessarily enforce. Would this be any different?
Well, I'm primarily speaking of single-family residences as, falling into the category as renter. Obviously, multifamily that is on the market for rental is rental, and you can call it that, but I tend to agree with Alderman Mulder in terms of the fact that multifamily is rental property. Single-family or owner-occupied, whether it be a condominium that's owned, whether it be duplexes that are owned, could be occupied by.
So you don't like the owner-occupied language?
That's true.
Okay, but single-family homes, whether they're rented or not, I think we in our head are considering different than a multifamily building with
Correct.
10 units to 100
Unless
units.
it's like the condos that we have right downtown.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I think back in whatever it was, 19, when we changed this, that was the discussion is, why are we treating a condo owner in Fowler Lake Village that has a $1.5 million condo essentially in the ratio,
Right.
and development-wise the same as someone who's renting for $1,500 a month and maybe stays for 2 years. So that was the reason we changed it to that language. But I understand the enforceability of it. I don't think it's something that I don't think it's an enforcement mechanism for that. I think it's guidance to the council on what we
Do you think
choose
it's
to
an
approve.
optics thing?
Not necessarily. I think it's we're promoting owner-occupied over rental as a policy decision, and then using that as a guide for us during zoning discussions, policy changes, land use changes.
Well, I can foresee a situation where somebody comes in and says, I want to build this duplex, or, no, this tri-family. And they're going to be condos, or however you want to say it, and you go with your policy that says renter. And you ask them, are these going to be renters? And they say, what difference does it make? Because they're all going to be owned by, so I'm just throwing that out there. It has no context in the law, because we cannot regulate how somebody utilizes their property. They have a right to rent it out. That's,
Well,
so I'm done.
and I'm going to make a comment. I agree 100% with Alderman Rozak and categorically disagree with you, Alderman Mulder, respectfully. For those same reasons that Matt Rozak stated. And hell, you can sue anybody for anything, Stan. The concept is what do we want the community to look like? And I categorically feel people that own something, yeah, there'll be maybe a few houses that get rented, but people that own something usually get involved in the community, usually stay longer. They get involved in your churches, they get involved in your nonprofits, they get involved in things like the Oconomowoc Area Foundation, all those entrepreneurial things that give back and make Oconomowoc the community that we are. Rentals are an important mix that we have to have and I think are very valuable. I think that if we have too many rentals, they still are transient type populations. Yeah, they can be a feeder program to houses, to building houses and doing things, but just look at the inventory right now. There isn't enough houses for people to buy. So philosophically, the way I view Oconomowoc as a place that's really cool because of the people and because of the people that are engaged, the people that give of their time to run the beer festival and all of these different things. And I view renters as people that are here, the majority of them that are here, either as a secondary place because they live somewhere else and come to be here because of family, which is great, or people that are going to be here for 2 to 3 years and then move on to something else. Now, if that's a house in Oconomowoc, great, but we already don't have the inventory to even fill that. So my brain is 2050 comprehensive plan. A council in 5 years should do this again because you'll see what happens. And you can create apartment complexes, multifamily, call them what you want, but rental facilities very fast, extremely fast. Look at how slow and how long it takes to build a comparable number of units as single-family homes. So there is no right answer here. And even at Plan Commission, we could see these ratios. You could argue these ratios in multiple different ways. The goal is to say, what do we want it to look like? And can we come up with something to update our comprehensive plan as a guideline? There can always be exceptions. We're not making an ordinance rule that defines, boom, this is what it is. But I think in the same light, we have to look at what's in the queue. Capri's in the queue, but they haven't purchased the property. We don't know if that's going forward. There are a lot of unknowns. That may never happen. We don't know. The Northeast apartments, those are things that are going to be coming to us. They've started with the city, but we don't know if all of that's going to happen either. So again, I think we could spend 6 months talking about this and actually be at the same place we are today. What we've asked Jason to do is put a lot of information together for you guys to look at, and then it's really up to you guys to decide. What Jason and I need to know is, do you need any more information? Number one. Number two, do you feel that you will be ready to make a decision to put this on as an action item on February 6th? Because I want to make sure, it's a big decision, but again, it's a guideline, and it's something that's required, recommended that we do in our comprehensive plan. Did I say that appropriately, Jason?
Yeah, I had a few other comments.
Please go ahead.
I spoke to a developer that's doing a project in the city that has also done multifamily projects and single family, and he doesn't have any projects currently in the city that's residential, so I thought he'd be a good sounding board. And he said, you know, projects today are different than the barrack-type apartments from the 60s and 70s, where you had the long corridor and everything. He goes, they're much more, apartments are different. They're more like, they have amenities, they have pools and workout rooms and business offices. And he said, the city, if they want to have high-quality apartments, they can ramp up the architectural design and the materials and the size of the apartments and that type of thing to get high-quality apartments. So that's one way to look at it. But like Mayor said, we're looking for direction on what type of policy you want to bring back. I'll bring back what the Plan Commission recommended, because that was a recommendation from the Plan Commission. It was 6832, but then we can massage that if we want at the next meeting on February 6th. If you think that's too early, we can bump it back. But right, I would like to get action on this quick because we have 4 projects that we are publishing for publication, and that would be being acted on February 20th by this board with 4 public hearings on February 20th. So I would really like to know what your direction is. And if it's, we don't even want to have a numbers, we don't need to. When I talked to Sewer Pack, they said not every community has ratios listed. It's just a policy. They said, you can judge it based on each project based on its own merit, independently. So it's up to you. I'm just the messenger here. I gave you, several questions tonight. It sounds like you don't want elderly housing in. If you want to
No, we
Other
do.
way.
elderly
Apartments.
housing,
We don't want to pull it out.
we want to pull,
No, we don't want to pull
or
it
you
out.
don't want to pull it out. You want it in.
Correct.
I wrote that down. Leave elderly housing in.
I wrote it
So
down.
I know I heard that loud and clear. Regarding if you want to act on the Plan Commission recommendation, February 6th, we don't need to do another public hearing. We've already held the hearing on it. Nothing's changed. But if you want to make a revision that night, I think that's allowable. And, I gave you the information. If you need more time, let me know.
So, and I think what's also important is you have these projects that are potentially in the queue. So if you do pick a ratio, you have to pick a ratio that works for those developments or pick a ratio for the future and grandfather those in because they're into the queue. I would probably suggest one of those 2 options. There are other ways you can do it, but I think we have to be fair because it's one thing to have something zoned for multifamily, but for example, some are not zoned. Several of these 4 are not zoned for the use that's coming forward. So that's your opportunity to say yes or no based on zoning. It doesn't have to be based on this. Yeah,
I don't know if I really agree with that. It's almost, what I hear is, we got these 4 projects coming up, and you all have to approve them
I didn't say that.
regardless of, well, that's what I heard, though.
No, I said you have to make a decision.
No, but you want us to go with items A or B, make sure that it's at least 711 or whatever the case is, so that these projects can be approved. Now, I could be wrong. This is what I feel as I heard. And I don't think, I can only speak for myself, I can't speak for all council. What if I don't like one of those projects?
Vote against it.
What if I feel that I want to go with single-family, multi with a duplex? I don't want to be pressured nor put into a position that I don't feel comfortable with.
So I think maybe I misspoke in the way I brought it forward.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is that we have to deal with the 4 that are in the queue. And you need to look at those 4 also based on your ratio, because when they come to the approval process, we can still say yes or no, but when you pick those ratios, those are your guiding principles. So you interpreted what I first said correctly, I misspoke.
Okay.
Because it's what also Jason mentioned, if somebody is zoned multifamily, by zoning rights, they have the ability to build there. We have 2 large projects that are in this through the staff meeting process and now into public hearing. that needs zoning changes, okay? And so those people, I think, need to know at some point in time and through their process whether that's going to go forward. We don't have to make a decision on the ratio based on each individual project, but we have to treat those 4 projects fairly if we dramatically change the ratios. And it's going to be on a one-by-one basis. But what we're trying to do is give you an idea of what's in the pipeline and how the effect of the ratios. So when we get to that point, you can still approve something that's not in the ratio. That's up to you.
Well, you'd have to amend your comprehensive plan where you did so, if you set your comprehensive plan at a ratio.
Right, that's correct.
I thought that comprehensive plan, we would not have to reset it. It's just a recommendation.
No, if you're gonna rezone a property, before you rezone it, it has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
And that we did that with Hackney House. We had to do the comprehensive plan, the land use plan, and then the zoning.
Okay,
Right.
Because
okay.
it was beyond all of those things at the time.
okay, okay.
But I did have a comment.
Yeah, shoot.
Thank you for your comments, Mayor. Back in 2019 or whenever we first changed this, I did not like the 60/40. I thought it should be 70/30. I have a lot of questions from my constituents about the number of apartments coming in. There's just a lot. I don't necessarily have issues with some apartments in the right place, in the right spot, in the location, given traffic patterns, given everything. I also think it's, thanks for coming out, by the way, the developer that came in, but someone from Milwaukee trying to tell us how to do our planning out here means very little to me. We should make the decisions based on the folks that live in our community and what's best for our community and what we're hearing from our constituents. That's what we're hired and paid to do. So I have a lot of folks in my area that are concerned about the number of apartments, and we've done a lot. So we can change the plan or not change the plan, or we can just vote against apartments that aren't zoned high density and just tell them to walk away.
It's also because ours is getting smashed with the apartments.
Yeah, and it's our district that's getting smashed with apartments and without capacity on the roads to handle the apartments and the traffic. So, again, there's right spots for them, there's wrong spots for them. Just because some developer is gonna make a boatload of money on those apartments is not a good reason for me to put in apartments, so.
I think what's nice about having this in the comprehensive plan at some level or wherever you decide to put it, is it makes us have this conversation at least every 5 years.
Yeah.
So back to the point, we don't have to have any ratios in there. We don't have to do anything. Stan is 100% correct.
Wait a minute, you told me I was wrong.
Only multiple times. But,
Daily.
but what it does is it makes us have this discussion, and I think that's our responsibility to our constituents. Yeah, Alderman Mulder.
So there's been several apartments that were being built as apartments. Because of their success, they got converted to condos.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying your constituents don't like apartments. If Hackney House had decided to go condo, they built it, they found out there was a healthy market for condo and switched those Hackney House apartments to condos, would your constituents feel any differently about that? They don't care whether it's a condo or an apartment. They don't want.
Actually, so no, I think you're right
you answered the question,
in a piecemeal, right. I think you're partially right. So a lot of the people that are mostly opposed to the apartments are actually people who live in side-by-side condos, very expensive condos. They're not Hackney House, large multifamily, dense, with 300 units on an acre and a half or whatever, and one road going in and out onto a county trunk highway. That was foolish, the entire development. It looks terrible. It still is one of the ugliest developments in the city by a long shot. I would even say the old building over here that made us relook at the whole downtown thing is better looking than Hackney. So, yeah, I think it depends. You're right, some apartments have gone to condos, like the ones, they were gonna go to condos, and then they stayed apartments, the ones behind Culver's, for instance, with the walk-up and kind of more street level, kind of row house kind of looking.
Those ones up in Lapham too, you think about
So.
The ones behind McDonald's, up behind the water tower.
Right. And so I think the massing is the biggest concern. I hear less concern about, buildings like in a downtown area. So like a Flower Lake Village, at least in my district, a Fowler Lake Village and Eagles Landing that are condos, that are buildings in a dense area already, seem less concerning than large massings, on the outskirts next to single family and on county trunk highways that can't handle it, where you don't have the access to downtown restaurants and, places to go eat or drink or walk around. It's just car traffic into 300-unit developments on a few acres. So that's the concern. If you had, for instance, look at Wingspan, if some of those buildings were, 2 stories and they were, smaller condo units, and there was less massing, instead of 170 units, it was only 110, I think they'd, a lot of my constituents would be completely happy with that. But it's the large massing and then the amount of the units. Or if if they just put in 50 apartment units, I don't think anyone would care. But it's like, we're gonna drop 170 in on a 2-acre in this little corner with one little entry road.
Well, and I think you bring a good point, is they can still have multifamily, but maybe they change the density.
Yeah. I think the density is the biggest part of multifamily, I think that creates the problems.
Good point.
And where it's located. I mean, I voted against Hackney because its location. I voted for Laughlin because Laughlin's the right spot, right on a massive 67 interchange there with massive connections and the ability for those people also to walk to places. They can walk to restaurants, they can walk to a grocery store. That's perfect, right? That's the right spot for apartments. Hackney House, that's isolated off on its own. You literally can't walk anywhere there. There's not even sidewalks still connecting to Pick and Save. So that's my thoughts, for whatever it's worth.
Yeah.
Just one guy.
I think we're all finding there's not the perfect answer, but I think we have a lot of good information to think about. So unless there are further discussions or comments, what I would like is if you could give us any feedback to Jason, Mark, and myself. Any questions, we'll try to get more information. Tentatively, unless we get negative pushback, we'll bring this to council as an action item to move forward. And all it is taking the recommendation from Plan Commission, and then you have the opportunity to act on it in that way or a different way, however you see fit. Is everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Jason, any other comments from you? Great discussion.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for all your hard work. Next up is reports and comments from aldermen. Oh, excuse me, one more
other
staff report?
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of the aldermen would probably echo the comment I'm going to make, but I just wanted to highly compliment all of our crews that have worked over the past week in taking care of everything that's gone on in the city. Has been perfect, but they've done an excellent job. Boy, you drive through other communities and you drive through here, it's a world of difference, and it's a lot of 16-hour shifts. It takes all the departments in the city. They were cleaning the downtown last night. They'll be cleaning the downtown tonight. Finish getting all that snow out of there so people can move around. But I think they did an excellent job, and and I've had expressed it to all the department heads this morning in our meeting to go back to their crews and pass that along. But I did want to make that comment publicly.
Did we use less brine this year? I didn't feel like I saw as many of the.
More than likely, I don't know what the number is, but we haven't had we had a very warm December with no snow on the horizon. And anytime where it's rain predicted first, we probably won't brine because it's just going to wash it off.
I see more cities brining too, than I used to.
They're seeing that the technology works.
Is the brine any different than road salt on corrosiveness to automobiles?
Not the kind we use.
So the brine is just salt water.
Right.
But it's a very low percentage of salt. It's only 23.3% salt.
Okay.
Versus when we salt the streets, that's 100%.
Okay.
I
So it's
asked that same
concentration.
question 4 years ago. When we
Oh, you did?
started. Yeah. And Mark and I talked at length.
Yeah,
It doesn't have
and
other
there's
chemicals in it.
Good.
different, there's calcium chloride, sodium chloride, things like that. And they work at colder temperatures.
Yeah.
That's where, and they're more expensive, so you generally don't use them, but those could be a little harder on vehicles than just the salt, that brine
Gotcha.
water that we're using.
Okay. Good. Thanks. Any other staff reports?
No, that's
Great.
it. Thank you.
Any other reports from aldermen? Jennifer?
I have one. I just want to give an update on where we're at on fundraising for the dog park. So we set out for 115,000, and then we had voted a while back on the city matching up to 75,000. As of today, along with the city match, we only need about another 10,000, and then we were there. So super
Congratulations.
close to the finish line.
Ah, well done.
You contribute that, Steve?
Yeah. Woof, woof.
I know, but, you know, give them back. No, just kidding.
I have a property here I pay lots of taxes on.
Good. Doesn't come to us,
And they
though.
went up. Only because of what I paid for the property.
Shame on you.
Yeah.
Bad negotiating.
Any other comments from Alderman? Just a couple quick comments from the mayor. Again, the same thing Mark said with the staff. They've just been spectacular. Alderman Altman-Cloth, great job on the dog park. That's super. Mark and I have been going through a punch list of a lot of items for 2024. If there are certain things that you want to make sure that we address this calendar year on the agenda or items you want us to investigate, please send me an email. I did meet with your president and vice president just before the meeting today. We went through some of the things and are trying to make sure that we kind of fill in all the holes that we may have moving forward. Hats off to all the folks, all the aldermen for rerunning for election. Thank you. I think we're going to have a great council moving forward. With that, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Altman-Cloth.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Aloha,